Hey everyone, this is an Amalgia video, and today we're going to be talking about the demo for Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars. This is a Square Enix game by Yoko Taro. If you don't know Yoko Taro yet, he's the mastermind behind the Nier games, and he is a living sage. That said, when I had seen the initial video of how this game was supposed to be played, I was a little skeptical and I thought he was wasting his talents. But after playing the demo, it really grew on me, and I think this is going to be an enjoyable experience if you have the patience to play through the game's format. Depending on whether you do everything that the demo has to offer, I'd say it's about an hour or so of a playthrough. Up front, I'm going to go through some pros and cons that I noticed while playing the game. Firstly, this game plays like no other game that I've ever played. It has elements of an RPG, it has elements of a tabletop RPG, but it plays more like an interactive book than an actual video game, which I find very interesting and I appreciate, but it lends itself to a slower gameplay style that I think younger gamers will not take to as easily. The game is interesting because everything in the game revolves around cards, which is both good and bad. The game is very cheaply designed and almost everything's 2D. The good news is that most of the game seems voice acted and the narrator does a very good job at keeping things interesting. They act as a game master in the tabletop game, and it's almost like having an omniscient observer to comment on your adventures while you're fighting and exploring. The game has a lot of RPG elements like inns, monster battles. The battle system is pretty fun, and at first I wasn't so sure if I liked it, but the more abilities I unlocked, I really started to get into the battle system, and so I think it's one of the game's major strengths. A loose comparison would be Octopath Traveler. The battle system revolves around you basically charging orbs that you spend on your abilities, although the orbs are for the party as a whole and not by individual character. But you can spend your orbs on any character, and it really powers up the moves that they can do. What's also interesting is that when you're in battle, sometimes certain abilities will cause a dice roll to happen. And then you can either sometimes roll a 6-sided die, sometimes it's a 12-sided die, but depending on your roll, it can add major power bonuses to your moves, and it gives it a random feel, but it's an exciting random feel, not just like, oh no, I got screwed over by RNG. It was really fun. So this is the first opening area. You're technically inside the castle, and it gives you a little bit of a feel for what the areas look like. One thing that does bother me a little bit about this game is that you can listen to the narrator read everything, which is fine, but I read faster than the narrator talks. And so a lot of the cards that have dialogue or story on them are angled, and it can be very odd to watch cards always be shifting the angles that they're on while you're trying to read the dialogue or the information that's on it. So this is where we get to movement and how things work. So in this area in the castle, it doesn't really matter so much because all the cards that we would step on are already overturned. Typically, when you get to a new area, the cards are face down and you have to uncover them. But here, the outer walls are already on display, and these gray cards are just the floor pieces. And so when you step on a character, it opens up a dialogue with them and you get to see their picture and whatnot. This will be important for trying to progress through the game because this is how you initiate conversations, but also how you build your encyclopedia of characters you've interacted with.
You cannot leave. Present yourself to the Queen at once.
So, to me, this game's major flaw is actually in the fact that it uses cards because it takes a long time to move between the cards and uncover everything. Once you hit the first town in this game, though, it gives you the ability to teleport between cards that you've already overturned if it's in your field of vision, which does speed things up quite a bit. But for the most part, just the sheer amount of time it takes you to hop from card to card is going to be a turnoff to most impatient players. I thought the designs of the main characters in this game were very well done. Townspeople are a bit of another story. There'll be cases where you'll talk to two different female characters and they'll have the exact same picture, and so it can be a little confusing if you're trying to keep track of who's who and what quest you're doing with who. Another upside to this game is the soundtrack seems good so far. The opening was like something out of Nier, and even the passive tracks for like the world map, the dungeons, and so on were pretty good from what I heard. One of the downsides to this game is that the story is very basic. It's not bad, but I had just hoped for a little more depth for something that Yoko Taro was involved in. This is just the demo, so maybe the story will get a lot better, but when you've got a game that pretty much hinges on the fact that it's an interactive book, you really got to make sure your story is on point and interesting in order to keep people engaged. The basic gist of the story in the demo is you meet the queen, something was stolen from the royal treasury, you need to figure out who stole it, and then chase them down and retrieve it. And then more events ensue at the end of the demo. But I'll be quiet now and let you see what the game is like and hopefully get a feel for what you're in for if you decide to play. Also, this is a comprehensive playthrough of the demo, so if you're having trouble, just keep watching. You can use this as a guide to figure out how you can progress better.
The Queen says witnesses might be found at Nexton. The Fellowship asks the Queen what the royal treasure is. The Queen describes a bottle containing a certain liquid. Without it, she trails off, but the desperation in her voice suggests its loss could spell disaster for the kingdom. Usually, one would expect recompense for this sort of undertaking, as demanding a reward would go against the tenets of the Ivory Order. You hold your tongue. The Queen, however, has already said she will reward the Fellowship with whatever they desire. It seems the royal treasure is just that important. Pray tarry no longer here. I await news of your success. The Fellowship bows and takes their leave.
So I'll chime back in here. Right now we are on the world map. It's a very narrow strip of it, but it gives you a feel for what the movement on the world map will be like. Places you can't traverse are usually cards that are water or mountains or things like that. And then field, grass, desert cards are things you can walk over and you have to step on them in order to flip over the card. Here's also the menu. We've got skills. Every character has multiple skills, and as you level up, you'll unlock more. And then characters even have passive abilities. So it's like a normal RPG, and it has some very interesting combinations. In the demo, at least, characters have jobs that are specific to them, and there doesn't seem to be a more expansive job system. It just seems like the evolution of your character's innate job instead of, a Final Fantasy Tactics style sub job system. While I always enjoy more complexity through customization, there was enough going on here with the characters' inherent differences and the way their skills could play off one another to make things interesting. Gear consists of weapon, armor, and accessory slots. When you start the game, all three of your characters have a weapon and an armor piece, body piece, but no accessories. You'll be able to buy new gear and new accessories when you hit the first town.
It seems the guards have their hands full battling monsters.
Once you step on a card, it will flip over all adjacent face down cards. And you can't step on water or boundary cards, and it'll just put you back on a card that you can't step on. And once you hit the next town, you'll unlock the ability to be able to just teleport between cards that you've overturned, which is very helpful for exploring, especially when you get on the larger section of the world map.
You dare stand in our way? Hedwyn scowls at the foul creature. It lunges at the Fellowship.
And now we're about to get into the basics of battle. It swishes into another screen, and it is turn-based like a normal RPG. So when you first start out, each character has two abilities. One will be something that can be cast without the use of gems, and the other one will be one that needs to expend those gems in the upper left-hand corner in order to use it. And any ability that expends gems is going to be more powerful than a normal ability. And like a normal RPG, your HP doesn't heal after battle. So the red number is your HP, the left number at the bottom of the card is your attack, and the right number on the bottom of the card is your defense. It works sort of like a normal card game where you need to balance out the attack and defense skills to calculate how much damage you're going to do. Monsters also have elemental weaknesses, and you can land critical hits. Elemental weaknesses will make your attacks do more damage, but a critical adds like another attack fold to it. So if your attack hits once and then you crit, it'll hit twice. If your attack hits 2 times and it crits, you'll hit 3 times. The female character on the left has offensive and healing skills. The buff character in the middle is mostly physical attack oriented and has all offensive skills. And the old man character on the right has a move that makes more gems appear in the box, and he also has strong magic skills. When you're in battle, the box in the upper left-hand corner can hold up to 10 gems. So you get 1 a turn, and you can also use the old man's abilities to give you another gem every time it's his turn. So theoretically, you can stack gems and then just burn all special abilities at the end of a fight. But in the demo, things are usually easy enough where you don't have to resort to gem stacking in order to win.
Gives a grim nod at his words. Mayhap the treasure's theft and the monster's behavior are connected somehow. First things first, the Fellowship needs to gather more information. To Nexton they set their sights.
Once you flip over the town card or, just any area transition card, you just step on it and then you can enter the next area. So this is the Town of Nexton. The footprints show the entrances and exits to the town. There will be shop cards located around, and you can unlock new shops by overturning new cards. And you can also find different characters who will have dialogue options. In the demo, most of the dialogue options are very basic, and they don't matter one way or another, even if you're given an option. But I do appreciate the fact that this game is set up to have different choices and outcomes based on your actions. The town has different items and gear to buy. There's an inn you can stay at, but our main objective here is to talk to the townspeople and uncover clues through dialogue as to who took the item from the royal treasury. There's also a subquest and a card minigame, so release the memes. There's a card game within a card game, but we'll get to that in a minute. Talking to characters unlocks their card in your menu screen, which lets you examine their picture. Sometimes the pictures are full body length, so it cuts off at the bottom, but you can see the picture in a little bit more detail in your menu, and it'll give you an encyclopedia style entry for that character so you can learn more about them. In true RPG fashion, the shops have a lot more items than you can actually afford, so if you wanted to grind battles in order to upgrade your characters to the maximum that they can be in the demo, then by all means, you're welcome to do so. That said, the demo is relatively easy, and I did not find the battles very challenging, but it could have just been effective ability use. But either way, you don't have to max out your characters in order to be able to clear the final boss of the demo.
Will that be all? The proprietor asks. I'm too scared to leave town with all those monsters out there, the woman sighs. The man helpfully advises you take the opportunity to purchase equipment and curatives while you are in town.
Oh, and the game does have an autosave system, but you can save at just about any time when you're not in battle, so it's good to save often if you don't want to lose your progress. You just go into the menu and tab over to the data card at the top, and you can save your game. I found this little mini quest here funny. There's just a woman with a loaf of bread brandishing a knife who has a hurt ankle, and you have to carry her to the apothecary.
She sprained her ankle and needs you to take her to the nearby apothecary. Winifred rushes to her and helps her up. Berwin lifts the woman onto his back, and the Fellowship sets out in search.
He's a brave man letting a woman brandishing a knife hop on his back. So here I think I walk to the apothecary so that I can overturn all the hidden squares in town and see what's on those cards. But this is where you unlock the ability to use the right stick to jump between cards that you have uncovered. This essentially speeds up the movement in the game and is very helpful for speeding up the gameplay.
Apparently, there's a monster lurking around the outskirts of. Rumors claim the monster fled to the west. You make your way to the inn, where you're, thanks to a royal decree, you're allowed to stay the night for free. And you're not about to refuse such hospitality.
Yeah, so like a normal RPG, you can fully heal your party members at the inn, or if you're outside on the field, you can just use healing items that you have stockpiled.
Feeling rested. An innocent-looking young boy accosts the Fellowship. In this parlor, you can play cards. The child rambles on, wheedling you.
So this quest where you play cards with the kid is something you need to do in order to complete the demo, because the item he gives you for playing with him, you need to get to the final dungeon. The card game isn't hard, but it is not intuitive, so I would highly recommend you pay attention to the demo here, and it'll explain how to play. The basic gist of the card game is that you have to make sets. Sets of cards can be either cards with consecutive numbers on them, like 3, 4, 5, or identical cards. So if you have 2 twos, you could pair those together, or 3 twos, you could pair those together. The goal, though, is to have 3 sets of cards with the highest values physically possible. So aces, for the purposes of this game, count as 1, so they are essentially garbage. Each player starts the game with 1 card, and then draws 2 cards. If they don't have anything in their hand to make a pair, then they have to discard 2 cards and keep 1 card in their hand. Discarded cards go into a community pile that either player can make a pair from. So it's a strategic thing to keep in mind, although the vast majority of this game is luck. If you do end up having to discard cards and hold 1, it's better to hold higher value cards or cards that you know that your opponent may play off of. So if your opponent has 5, 6, you would not want to put a 7 card in the middle, because then they'll get a high value set from what you turned in. The number in the upper left-hand corner shows how many cards are remaining in the deck to be dealt. Since 2 cards are drawn each turn, you can keep track of how many draws you have left between you and your opponent before the game ends, and it ends when the cards remaining reaches 0. When the game is finally over, the player who wins is the one who has the most value between their 3 sets, added together cumulatively. Something to keep in mind is that the demo has a preset order of cards that are drawn for the purpose of teaching, and winning the demo doesn't clear the quest that you need to get the item. After the demo, or you could just ignore the demo if you learn how to play from watching this video, but you have to play an actual match with the character in order to get the item you need to progress. One thing I noticed is if you have the ability to make a set between your cards or the cards in the community pool, the game forces you to make a set. And in the case where you already have 3 high value sets and the game forces you to make a low level set, you don't really have to panic. Even though the game is forcing you to make something useless, you can just discard the new low level set when you make it. So that's the end of the demo, and then this is where I played him for real. When you try to initiate the card minigame, it prompts you to select the rules, but despite telling you to pick one, you only have one option to pick, so don't really worry about it. You'll unlock more card game options after you play at least one game, but for this match that you need to beat the demo, there's only one option to pick. So this is what I mentioned before, where I already have 3 high value sets and the game forces me to make a useless set, here being the low value of 3. All you gotta do is select the useless set as the one to discard, the one you just made, and you're good to go. So in this match, the computer and I ended up tying, and I was able to clear the quest. I think you get the item just for playing with him. I don't actually think you have to win, so, I mean, just play it and have fun.
Thanks for playing, the boy squeals. He hands over the medicine bottle as promised. The man claims he saw a suspicious someone leaving the castle grounds carrying what looked to be a medicine bottle. He didn't get a good look at their face, but says they were nothing but skin and bone. The Fellowship thanks the man for the useful information. How may I help you? The proprietress inquires. Will that be all? The proprietress asks. You arrive at the Apothecary. After taking a curative, the woman begins hopping up and down. Nothing holds a candle. She turns to the Fellowship, her eyes widening in surprise. You three. It seems she's only now realized the Fellowship are disciples of the Ivory Order. The woman takes each of their hands in turn, thanking them for their service. The Ivory Order is famous for providing medical supplies throughout the realm, and indeed the wider world. Every smile the Order brings to someone's face makes Winifred proud to be a disciple.
You may have noticed up until this point that when you talk to characters, step on establishments, or complete certain objectives, you unlock new side stories for the characters that you encounter. These are essentially useless, but they add a little bit more color to the descriptions and give you the abilities to look at characters' full body card portraits. The main thing to just remember for the town of Nexton is you have to complete 3 things. You just have to bring the woman to the apothecary, beat the card game with the boy, and talk to all the miscellaneous villagers so that you can get enough information on who stole the item from the royal treasury.
The Apothecary catches sight of the Fellowship. Ah, the Ivory Order, to which I owe the prosperity of my humble shop, she said. She gestures to the drawers filled with her wares. Pray, choose one of my concoctions and take it at no cost.
After you drop the old woman off at the apothecary, you can actually step off the square and step back on it to engage with it as an actual shop, which I suggest you do. The game kind of sets you up that the items are going to be free, but they're not. You have to pay full price for any of the items that she sells.
Will Will that be all? The proprietress asks. It would be unwise to leave the town with so few...
Here I had forgotten to talk to the woman to the right, but she was the last person I needed to talk to in order to grab all the clues that the characters would need to deduce who took the royal item.
Upon asking, the woman says she was attacked by a monster outside of town. A strange creature, she says, nothing but bones, and it clutched a bottle of medicine as if its life depended on it. Thanks to the information gleaned from the townsfolk, the Fellowship is all but certain of who has stolen the royal treasure. The first clue was the Queen's description of the treasure. Then there's the bony figure seen fleeing town, the skeletal monster clutching the bottle of medicine, and the monster that fled west. From all that information, the Fellowship distills the thief's true identity.
I like this. After you gather all your clues, it's just like, who done it? I like how the female character speaks up to say who the thief is when you make the conclusion, and then the old man just blurts it out and talks over her and then gets all the credit, so I guess it's true to life in that sense.
As if to say, another sage pronouncement from the great and wise Hedwyn. Winifred clears her throat, proclaims that the Fellowship shall head west, out of town, and walks off.
This is where you get to explore the slightly larger section of the world map. There will be hidden chests on different card squares, so you can explore and try to gather all the extra items, and there will also be random battles. The encounter rate in the demo was pretty high from what I remember, but with an RPG, I guess you should be used to grinding. The objective to advance the story is all the way to the west, and I think there's 2 to 3 chests in the northern reaches of where you can get in this section of the world map. There will be squares that you can uncover, but the narrator will chime in and say that you can't go that far. Gem use, especially when you get new abilities, makes the game a lot more fun, but also if you want to use your items, you press Y in battle. Using an item doesn't consume the character's turn when you use it, so that's good. The game has 6 different elements. They're all pretty standard in Square Enix fashion. You don't get access to every single element in the demo, but you don't really need them either. And I am really liking this Celtic theme for the battle. It's a good song. So here his normal attack criticaled, so he got 2 hits instead of 1 in the same round.
Fellowship moves westward, only to be unnerved by the sight of a human figure moving through the trees. The presence of large packs suggests a traveler. I beg your pardon, but did you catch sight of a monster? He gives her a puzzled look. There's nothing out there but the sea, he says. That and a cave full of monsters on the opposite shore. I suspect you might find your quarry there. The Fellowship exchange glances and nod as if to say, then that is where we shall go. Alas, they will need a boat to cross the sea. The traveler hoists his packs, suggests the Fellowship speak to the fisherman on the western shore, and takes his leave.
The fisherman he mentions is a pretty funny and ridiculous character, but we'll talk about him when we see him. Other than that, stepping on random squares in addition to battles can also have randomly generated events happen. In the demo, it seems to mostly be you encounter an enemy, roll the dice to see how hard it is, and then depending on your dice roll, you have a different difficulty to deal with.
That was lucky.
This lightning attack has a six-sided roll attached, so whatever you roll on the dice gets added to the attack's final damage. Here it also critical, giving an extra strike on the end, which really just destroyed that goblin. Now here we go, it's the buff fisherman.
Close by, a fisherman of exquisite physique hauls a net out of the water, his muscles rippling. This is no time for lustful reverie. Winifred races to his side and asks that he give the Fellowship safe passage aboard the ship. That vessel is cursed, the fisherman mutters, trembling. Night after night, it leaves port without a soul aboard, headed I know not where. Come morning, it is once again anchored here. This, to the fisherman's mind, is the result of a curse. His head drops into his hands. With but a single dispeller, I am certain I could lift it and sail away. Winifred hands the despairing fisherman a dispel. The fisherman snatches up the concoction, so delighted that his pectoral muscles begin twitching. The Fellowship politely ignores this fact.
I just find it hilarious when they meet the fisherman. He's like wearing a Speedo, and the female character goes to talk to him, and the narrator's like, "This is no time for lustful reverie." And then they give him the item, and he's like, "My pectoral muscles are bouncing." And the party's like, "We politely ignore this fact." It kind of shows that this game might have some hilarious dialogue in store when the full version is released. From this point out, it's basically me exploring and uncovering the rest of the map so that I can find all the hidden treasure chests and see where the boundaries are. So I'm going to speed up the video at this point, and then I'll slow it down when we hit one of the random events that pops up on squares. So this is one of the events I was talking about. It just kind of encounters an enemy, and then you roll a dice to see how powerful it will be. I encountered this event maybe 3 times, and I only saw one variation. So I don't know if there's more, if I had just wandered around the map long enough to find a different version, but it basically throws you into battle with an enemy that has a very stacked defense. You have to use your gems efficiently and hope for critical hits. Also, elemental weaknesses really help when battling these random event enemies. Here I got the water elemental version, so the buff character using his lightning strike is the way to go for killing him.
Congrats.
I'm gonna speed up the video again until it's time to hop on the ship and head over the sea.
And fight. Let's do this.
Here I decided to go back to the town to rest at the inn, buy some items, and buy some gear just in case because I didn't know what to expect for the boss. The final boss isn't all that hard. The game recommends you be level 7 before you cross the ocean. I ended up being level 8 and I just steamrolled everything, and it wasn't a problem. Other than visiting the inn and recovering your characters, the main thing you're going to want to do are visit the item shop and visit the armor and weapons shop. There will be some armor and weapons you probably haven't bought yet. Those should probably be bought first. Here I did the items. There is one useful item, but it's very expensive. It costs 1,000 gold, and it gives you 3 gems added to your box when you use it. It's helpful for the last boss, but I ended up not needing it, even though I bought it and used it. The majority of the items that the armor and weapon shop sells are things that your characters already have equipped, so make sure when you're hovering over an item, it is something that is actually giving you increases to your stats, instead of something that would just be equivalent to what you have. And at this point, if you happen to have an extra 600 gold, remember that none of your characters started with accessories, so you could pick up 3 rings to increase your defenses. Alright, I'm going to speed up the video again so that we can head back to the Fisherman and go out west. Oh, another note about battle is that your gems reset after each battle. So there's no point in finishing a fight with stockpiled gems, because it's not going to carry over. Oh, and it seemed to be a pretty low rate, but sometimes when you complete a battle, it'll give you 3 treasure chests to pick from. You can only pick one, but it'll show you the items in the other 2, just in case you were curious.
Are you ready to set sail for the cave? The fisherman asked. Let's shove off then. He beckons you aboard.
This is the final area of the demo. It works like the other areas where you have to explore to flip over cards. The only differences are that it's dark, so you can't see too far ahead of you when you're uncovering squares, and also there are doors in dungeons that need keys in order to be opened.
He says. Rout the enemy.
This dungeon has a combination of enemies you've already seen and some new enemies that are slightly more powerful. There's nothing really ridiculous that you have to worry about when venturing through this cave, though.
Nice work.
The female healer character has light-based magic that she unlocks when she levels up, and that's what the skeletons in this dungeon are weak to, which will help you out as you progress. So this treasure chest here is a good one because I don't think the shop in town actually sold better staves for your mages. So you have to pick one or the other, but this is a big improvement to their starting weapon.
Don't hold back.
So I end up examining this door down here after the battle, but you have to go to the northeast of this cave in order to find a key to open that door.
About the enemy. Existence of a corresponding key.
About the enemy.
The door before you is shut quite tightly. It appears to have the Fellowship slides the simple key into the keyhole and turns it. The lock opens with a thunk.
So you're good to just go down the stairs at this point. I just wanted to overturn the other cards to see if there was any secret passages, but I did not find one. If you've reached this point, then you're almost at the final boss. So make your preparations, make sure your HP's filled if it's low, and get ready, because the second you find a treasure chest that's coming up, the boss automatically triggers. There's a dialogue option that comes with this door, but like the other dialogue options in the demo, your choice doesn't matter at all, so just pick whatever.
Berwyn pulls on the massive handles with all his might. Berwyn gives the door a roundhouse kick out of pure frustration. As his foot connects, the door trundles to the side. So it was one of those sliding contraptions. Something leaps out at the Fellowship in the darkness. Winifred deftly parries the attack with her staff. Edwin looks fondly at Winifred, only to have his reverie interrupted by Berwyn's cry of, "It's coming back."
This is the last forced regular battle before the final boss, and it's just 2 skeletons, so it's nothing to worry about. Use your light spells and get through it easy. The second you uncover this treasure chest, the final boss triggers.
Approaches the chest, only for a voice deep as an earthquake to echo through the cavern. "You shall not have it," a voice growls. The Fellowship warily eyes their surroundings as several somethings leap out of the shadows.
This is the demo's final boss fight. It shows 2 support monsters and a main skeleton boss monster. The slime-looking ads are weak to fire magic, but they're also susceptible to the freeze status effect. The main problem with the fight is that the skeleton, he's weak to light, but he regens like 3 hit points every single turn. Because he regens when damaged, it's a better strategy to pick off the ads on the side before going for the main boss. And that's that. It's not really too difficult of a fight, but I didn't expect anything extremely challenging from the demo. It was fun though.
Winifred neatly steps through the fiend's remains and opens the chest. Inside is what appears for all the world to be an ordinary medicine bottle. At last, the royal treasure is in safe hands once more, Hedwin sighs. Winifred and Berwin nod and agree. Treasure in hand, the fellowship exit the cave, exulted.
At this point, the story automatically warps you back to the castle and then leaves you with the final cliffhanger that encourages you to buy the main game.
They offer her the retrieved treasure. As reward for the arduous task of returning our prized possession, I bid you name anything you desire, she proclaimed. She is positively beaming and seems prepared to shower the fellowship with riches, whether they demand them or not. But at that moment, a massive roar, the likes of which had never been heard before, shakes the entire castle. As the roar recedes, one of the royal guard, pale as a sheet, bursts into the royal hall. He struggles to gather his breath. Just now, over the castle, a dragon. He pants. A dragon. So the great evil has returned. Queen Nilla turns her gaze to the sky, dumbfounded. So the monster troubles are connected, Hedwin says so under his breath, so the queen does not hear. A profound silence settles over the royal hall. The fellowship stand tall, unflinching, as though they know what must be done in the face of such a crisis. What will become of the land now that the dragon has returned? I'm afraid that will have to wait. We're all out of time for this portion of the adventure. Don't you worry. We'll continue the tale another time. I look forward to our next session. Until then, I bid you good day. Farewell, friend.
The game's slow pace bothered me at first, but the more I played and the more I battled, the more fun I had. I do actually plan to buy the full version of this game when it's released. I expect some good things from the story and the dialogue. If you're still with me at this point, thanks for watching. I hope it was interesting, and I hope it encourages you to maybe try out the game if you've got the patience for it. Anyway, I'll see you next time. And if you've liked or found any of the Amalgia videos helpful, please subscribe. It really helps us out.